Hello, and welcome back to Terri Reid's Attic, a place where we share stories of things that go bump in the night. Sit back, get comfortable, and enjoy the stories. One of my freakiest up-close and personal encounters with an apparition is when I was working through the night in my attic office. It was about 4 a.m, and my beloved Riley, a Bernese mountain dog, looked up from the couch he was resting on, looked over to the attic stairs, and wagged his tail. I was busy putting the finishing touches on a paragraph and assumed that Riley was greeting a flesh and blood human. But, out of the corner of my eye, I suddenly saw a very tall stranger ascending the stairs. When I turned to get a better look, he disappeared. I told myself that I must have been imagining things. I'd been up all night writing ghost stories, for heaven's sakes. Then I remembered. Riley had seen him first. I have heard from numerous sources and experienced for myself that it is not unusual for our pets to be sensitive to the paranormal. Is it because they're just more instinctively in tune with their surroundings? Or is it because they are more accepting of the phenomena and don't mentally block it out? Years ago, we had 2 young cats, McDuff and McCloud. They came from a litter of kittens whose mom was a barn cat, but there must have been a throwback to a Siamese somewhere because they both had Siamese coloring and the unique vocalizations of Siamese cats. Unfortunately, McCloud slipped out of the house one day and was hit by a car right in front of our driveway. We were devastated and solemnly buried McCloud in the meadow behind our house. About a week later, McDuff started staring into the corner of the dining room, where McCloud had loved to rest. McDuff would stare, wide-eyed, his hair on end, and he would walk, stiff-legged, away from the area. Occasionally, he would hiss at the corner of the room. This went on for several days, and we decided that a trip to the vet was needed. The vet ran blood work, took his vitals, and totally checked him over. Nothing was physically wrong with McDuff. Then we explained about the death of his brother, and our vet nodded wisely and said, "Oh, well, he's probably seeing his ghost." We ended up getting 2 kittens to distract McDuff and perhaps move McCloud on, and it seemed to do the trick. McDuff stopped seeing ghosts, and we really didn't see any more signs of McCloud. However, now that I think of it, the story I told earlier about my son's friend who spent the night and woke up to watch his car keys slowly move across the coffee table and get knocked to the ground, that sure sounds like something a cat would do, doesn't it? Here are some more pet stories from Reddit. The links to the original stories can be found underneath this video. These stories might be slightly edited for clarity and language. People lie about ghosts. Dogs don't. The following is a true story. I grew up in Massachusetts alongside a golden retriever whom we named Seneca. She was young while I was, and yet she essentially raised my brother and I. Most Goldens are gentle, kind, and personable. She was no exception. We picked her out in the first place because of her adorable habit that we had believed to be unique to her at the time, her smile. When meeting people with goodness in their hearts and intentions, she would peel back her lips, scrunch up her nose, and reveal her teeth, which initially looked a bit scary. But then her tail would start to wag so hard that it seemed as though it would fly off her body, and she'd start sneezing uncontrollably because how wrinkled up her nose was. In short, if you had good intentions, she'd give you not just a smile, but a whole adorable happy dance. If she didn't know you or couldn't see you, however, she'd growl and bark like any other dog with a family to protect. This happened a lot when people knocked on our front door, simply because she couldn't see who was on the other side. The moment she met the friendly delivery man on the other side, the smiling would begin. She started getting sick back in 2016, so my family and I decided to bring her out to her favorite place on earth, Cape Cod, Massachusetts. My late grandfather owned a 250-year-old house in Barnstable. which would serve either as our rest stop on our way out to the tip of the Cape or as our final destination itself, simply because of how beautiful it was. Narrow hallways, creaking staircases, oil paintings of the house's prior inhabitants lining the walls. Your picture-perfect haunted house. My grandpa used to bring us into the living room and say, "This is where the household used to display the dead, back before funeral homes." This place was even a stop along the town's ghost tour. My grandpa died a year before this story took place, but left the house and the family because he knew how much we all loved it. His memory filled that entire house, and consequently filled us with a bit of sadness whenever we visited it. We arrived at the house and let Seneca out of the car, watching lovingly as she sprinted around the property with energy we hadn't seen in months. We stayed outside as long as we could, allowing us all to soak in that magical salty air. Then night fell. Something feels wrong about watching TV in a house that old, or even using electricity at all for that matter. It felt more appropriate to light a roaring fire in the living room. "The parlor, you mean," my grandfather would say, and keep candles lit wherever else we needed to go. This was our choice, of course, not some horror movie where the power goes out. My brother, sister, and I played cards by the fire with Seneca sleeping soundly beside us. My parents had gone up to sleep in the master bedroom. The house was quiet. Darkness reigned king everywhere, except our orange-yellow orb of safety cast by the fire. We were lulled into a sleepy trance by Seneca's deep, relaxed breathing. Until she awakes. With no warning, Seneca sits bolt upright, her ears perked, tail stiffened, eyes fixed on the dark, empty doorway that led to the kitchen. My brother, sister, and I all noticed immediately, of course. We followed her gaze, searching in the darkness of the doorway for my mom or dad, the only other people in the house. Nothing. Darkness. Then she starts to smile. Her tail begins to beat against the floor with rigorous energy. Her nose crinkles up. She sneezes into the floor 3 or 4 times, reverting her eyes back to the empty doorway after each occasion. My brother, sister, and I watch with a combination of horror and fascination. Though I can't deny that once Seneca's smiling began, the horror diminished. She had always known who meant us harm and who didn't. Whoever she saw in that doorway was no enemy. She continued this tail wagging and smiling for a few moments until it subsided, until whoever she saw had left. To this day, though I'll never know with certainty who was watching us from that doorway, I choose to think it was my grandpa, watching his grandchildren enjoy his house as he would have wanted, waving at Seneca as he did each time he saw her in life. I loved that story. The next one from Reddit isn't quite as warm and fuzzy. It's called "My Dog is Seeing Something." All right, Reddit, my dog is seeing something at the top of the stairs. We'll rewind to about 5 or 6 weeks ago. Our apartment has been, for the most part, quiet in the 8 or 9 months we've lived here. We, being me, my fiance, and my mother. Aside from a couple of experiences with temporary creepy feelings, weird nightmares, and one isolated incident of a knock me and my mother heard and couldn't explain. But 5 or 6 weeks ago, I started getting mega creepy vibes. I don't know if maybe it has something to do with the negative energy from the violent drug dealer downstairs or what, but I was terrified to be alone in the house. When I was locked in my room with the lights on. The living room, particularly the stairs down to the door opens onto a staircase that leads up into the apartment's living room area. There's a half wall there, and the area at the top of them was frightening to me. I didn't know why, but I didn't question it. A week or two after these feelings started, I came home from class one night to find a dog I didn't know practically waiting for me at the end of our sidewalk. I wrangled her, and it turns out her owners didn't want her anymore, for whatever reason. Nothing wrong with the dog. She even had shot records, walked on a leash, and was house trained. Never look a gift horse in the mouth. We loved her, and we kept her, and we still love her. Now, we've established that she's 50% border collie, 25% pit bull, and 25% lab. I already have an oversized lab who is docile as a lamb, but her, Nova, is smart as a whip. She's alert almost all the time, even when she's playing. And she has a true pit bull's bark, loud and scary. She's got all the best qualities of her 3 breeds, and maybe something else. Anyway, I'm rambling. But one night, my mother, a friend, and I were sitting at our dining room table, which is open and branches off the living room. No wall blocking the view to that room or the stairs. Sebastian, our lab, was on the opposite side of my mother begging for food, and Nova was laying under my chair. Suddenly, she slithers out from under my chair and stands up. The fur up and down her back is standing up like a mohawk, and she is growling that beast growl of hers. I expected her to be looking at the window, which was open, and that's what Sebastian usually does when someone was outside. She wasn't, though. She was looking at the top of the stairs, staring at them. Have you ever seen a border collie stare at things? It's intense. I got up to check to see if anyone was about in the parking lot, and Nova let out an explosion of aggressive barking. I had heard her bark at neighbors and at things that frightened her, and she had never barked like this. This was not, "Hey, this is my home." This was, "Hey, you get the heck out." I turned just as she raced across the room and around the edge of the stairs. She stopped there as if whatever she had chased around the bend had disappeared. She was restless after that and did it twice more. This was about 3 weeks ago, and she's done it frequently since, at least once or twice a week. Sometimes she'll sit up and stare and growl. Sebastian doesn't seem to notice it, and the cats are never around. All I know is every time that it happens, I get an overwhelming sense of discomfort, like being in the room with someone angry or with ill intentions. It's always happened while I was already upstairs, but tonight, my mother came to greet me on the stairs after I'd returned from a walk with both dogs. Nova stared past us and growled up at the corner. I felt trapped there between the locked door and the top of the staircase. I let her off her leash, and she stalked up the stairs, still growling, and went around the corner. Scared me, because I didn't know what she could be seeing or why my hair was on end. My mom, because she was worried someone might be in the house. She had just gotten home and hadn't even made it up the stairs yet. Once Nova came back, acting as if the coast was clear, we finally went up. I know this story isn't all that interesting, but I can't explain the uncomfortable feeling I get every time this happens, and sometimes just before. Why is it only her? And why does it seem to make her so angry? Well, I'd pay attention to Nova if it were me. But these stories are just that, stories. Are there any experts to weigh in on the idea that pets can sense the paranormal? In the next episode, we'll hear what the experts have to say about pets and ghosts. Thank you for stopping by Terri Reid's Attic. If you enjoyed the stories, please click like and please subscribe. And please look below for links and more videos. Until next time, from ghoulies and ghosties and long-legged beasties and things that go bump in the night, dear Lord, protect us.